Recording now. So welcome everybody. I do really appreciate you being in here, sharing time and space for our live viewers as well as those on the screen at the moment. I'd like to just start by setting the intention of what this opportunity is about. I did speak to Appio earlier this morning about, I don't know if you know what happened a few weeks ago when I did a blab for good, Cara. I'll explain a bit more about that in a moment. So for me to stay on message about the intention of this is to literally be able to create some safe space for people to come into this conversation, share, if they wish, a challenge they're currently facing, and for us that can to then contribute into what kind of solutions we might be able to suggest or recommend, or recommend on, refer on, open up our networks and see what comes from there. Mm-hmm. So this is kind of I guess some people do, I never get the pronunciation right, tithing of donating tithing. So tithing, donating yes. A percentage of income. I have a very Aboriginal family where I look after family first. So anything extra that I have generally goes to the family when it comes to money. So my intention here is to donate my time and talent and to be available and be of service. So if anyone else wants to play in the space, there's some other people that came in a few weeks ago. The results of that blab was life-changing for the person who was in the hot seat getting the support and solutions. So other than setting that intention, I have no idea what's going to arise today. What I will say is that I do like to keep on time, and I have got clients today kind of back to back. So I've got an hour scheduled for this opportunity. Yeah, any questions?
That's perfect.
Make sense?
Perfect sense.
Beautiful.
Absolutely.
Good.
Beautiful.
So can I ask away?
Please.
I jumped into the seat. It's like, right, I do need help. I need help. So
pen and paper.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Can you hear me all right? Okay, cool. So I have Appios, just so you know, I do social media management, but the space is so crowded.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
It's saturated. And what sits behind that is a degree in psychology and 15 years of experience in e-business. Okay. And postgraduate management qualifications, but I use that in my business, not, in managing social media. Okay.
Sure.
So what I'm doing is I'm moving my business into the space where I want to support social media managers and provide them insights to the psychology of the clients that they're trying to reach. So like their clients, the end game. I need help, in getting through the mentality of the social media managers that they actually don't know everything. They might know the tech stuff, but they don't understand the person that sits behind all of their activities and that sits behind the tech. And the second bit is like, because I know this stuff, I can't separate myself far enough to go, okay, what do you need to know about? So this week I spoke about the psychology of social proof, because I saw that was starting to be discussed, same as authenticity is starting to be discussed. So I thought, right, I'll grab that and I'll talk about it. And the feedback has been fantastic. People are saying that love it, it's very helpful, blah, blah, blah. So I know that I'm hitting the right point.
Yep.
One, I need to get through their mindset, and two, I need to know what they need. So can you help?
Yes. I've absolutely got some solutions to this. Appio, have you got some ideas around this? Because I'm happy to jump in, but if you've got ideas.
Well, I tends to work. I mean, even though I love the science of psychology and I've studied quite a bit of it myself. In fact, I actually studied to be a therapist for a while before choosing a totally different career path.
Same.
I tend to work more in an energetic realm myself. So just to kind of give you a little bit about my own background, most folks refer to me as the emotion emancipator, because as an empath, I'm somebody who actually senses emotion. I feel emotion, but I also broadcast a safe space for people so that when I'm working with them, they literally get to feel a sense of what it is that they really want to feel. And so because I work on that energetic level, I tend to go very much by instinct, very much by what I'm feeling, what I'm getting, and what I'm hearing, basically the impressions that I get. And I'm a firm and passionate believer that every single person in this world is empathic to a certain degree or another. Some are much more deliberate about it. Some are much more conscious about that particular ability of us to be able to sense those emotions. But nevertheless, we all have that ability. I mean, that's one of the reasons why we're able to form such strong friendships, why we fall in love, why we're able to build, families and communities and so forth, because we can sense when somebody, has a certain appreciation for us or not. So in that particular way, I would say from that standpoint, and as you're working with people and as you're trying to get a sense of how to guide them and so forth, listen to what your instincts are telling you. Listen to how it feels to you. Pay attention to how it feels, because when you pay attention to your feelings, when you're paying attention to, say, for instance, you want to guide them in a particular way, but it doesn't quite feel good to you, it's basically your guidance saying, okay, maybe I need to go into a different direction and give them something else. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
So, Cara, what I would throw in on top of that would be some of what I wrote down with that first part of the getting through to the mentality of the managers. I wrote down what sits underneath that is their fear. And we've got a lot of people sitting in these roles that are, the expectations on them is to, generally, as a social media manager, the expectation on them is to know everything. Now, in my world, one of their greatest challenges is that if they admit that they don't know everything, number one, they're going to feel very uncomfortable. Number two, it could threaten their role. Number three, they could quite easily see you as a threat rather than a compliment to their work. Yeah. So like Appio, I would be inclined to be, in a very practical way, be approaching the social media managers to say, and I say this from experience, having learned how not to do some things in spaces where people weren't quite ready to hear my methodology. What I've taught myself to do, because I'm a solutions, like I'm straight there. I hear the problem and I go, bam, I know the solution, bam. And then I forget, maybe they're not quite ready to hear that yet. So some of the steps I've put in place now is to say to my clients, so tell me what's working really well. What is it that you love in this space? Talk to me about that. And that's usually really easy for them. They can go, oh, yeah, blab, like just pour it out. And then I go, okay, awesome, that's fantastic. I've got a good sense on what really lights you up. Where are your challenges? What's really getting in the way of you feeling like you can hit the mark? And generally, there'll be an empty, pregnant pause.
Yep.
And I go, oh, do I have to talk about that? And I go, well, no. No, seriously, I do. I just go, no. And they go, oh. And I go, so you just want to stay with that problem for a bit longer, do you? And they go, oh, not really. I go, okay, so you know what? Let me know when you're ready.
Yeah.
And that's hard, like really, really hard for me, because I just want to go, here's your list. Like, it's straightforward. Honestly, anyone who says, oh, it's too hard, I go, get your pen and paper and write your list. It's easy. Like, here's some steps. But I've learned the hard way that not everyone is ready to receive the information. And I suspect for the client base that you're dealing with at the moment, one of the most powerful things that I would imagine you would be able to facilitate is working with that fear in a very practical, real way of being able to ask some of those pointed questions, but backing it up with, so what would be the worst thing that could happen if you did it differently?
Yeah. And I was thinking that you were going to go there because I remember a review situation that I had with a manager, and she said to me, okay, so Cara, what do you think's worked really well in the past 3 months? Okay, what do you think hasn't worked so well? And what do you think you'd like to do differently next time? And yeah.
So how did you feel in that process?
Oh, fantastic, empowered. Oddly enough.
What a beautiful formula for you. For you to take that exact formula and to be able to share that with your clients and tell the story, Cara. Because I honestly believe that storytelling is one of the most powerful tools we can use. If for you to tell the story about sharing one of your vulnerabilities, and you might like to premise it, if I'm, being a little bit cheeky and making suggestions here, but you might like to premise it even by saying, in a review, a professional review that I took place, and I felt a bit awkward and a bit uncomfortable about going into that review, not really knowing what to expect. But what I got out of it was solid gold.
Yeah.
So when we can share some of those vulnerabilities, that's in what I'm seeing is that's when people actually build their trust, like, and rapport factor with it, respect factor with us. Because we're saying to them, look, we're not perfect. No one gets it right all the time. But we know what it's like to not be able to achieve. So when we can open our minds and be prepared for a little bit of the fear, a little bit of the awkwardness, and you might disappoint people and you might not get it right the first time, all of that permission-based language, when we can lead with that, people are more inclined to follow because you go, oh, yeah, well, she's like us.
Okay, cool.
That's where I think you could greatly influence their mentality, but really encourage them to come up with, well, if this isn't working, what else might? Like, have you put any thought into what else might? And quite often people don't really. They can get so stuck in the problem. So a strategy I throw in there is come up with 6 different things, 6 different ways that you might be able to approach this, just to get your head out of thinking this is the one way and it didn't work and now I'm stuck.
Yep.
6 different ways.
Cara, here's a question for you. Do you, in your discussions with these social media managers, open up the permission, if you will, for them to not know everything?
Beautiful.
No.
Oh, do that.
Okay, do that. I think that is really, really important, is for them to understand that it's okay, because truthfully, almost all of us go into certain positions, especially if we're hired in the corporate world. I mean, I spent a very long time in the corporate world. And I know that one of my biggest fears, and it was the biggest fears that was shared by so many people that were around me, is I go into this because they are, they have this knowledge, and they do have the knowledge. But underneath that, there's this undercurrent of, I don't know it all. Oh, crap. What have I gotten myself into? And so by opening up the space as their coach, you open up that space for them and give them permission to not know it all. It's okay not to know it all. We can keep it between us. You don't necessarily have to divulge that to your coworkers or anybody else. But if you want to improve, if you want to really be open to really succeeding in this space and creating options for yourself, and one option could be losing my peace of mind over this is not an option. Then you can open up that space to create other options as well. And by having that permission, especially permission from somebody else who has been there, to be human, to not know it all, it gives them a huge sense of empowerment as well.
Definitely.
It does, because Apiary, what you're doing is reminding me of all of the things, and Bronwyn, you're doing the exact same thing, is reminding all of the things that I do intuitively. Exactly. I know it's okay not to know it all. And you know what? I know it's okay to admit to somebody else that I don't know. I learned that very quickly in the public sector, that, you know what, it's okay to go to a minister and go, I'm sorry, minister, I don't know. I will get back to you on that, because giving them false information was worse than saying, I don't know.
Yeah,
exactly.
And if anything, you engender more respect by being able to make that admission and say, let me find out.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, I learned a very, very valuable lesson in a senior management role where I had been given a task which seemed like a very straightforward task. However, I'd forgotten about the hierarchical community I was dealing with. So I tried to complete this task, couldn't complete it, had to go back to my general manager with a great big amount of humility and say to her, really sorry, I wasn't able to complete that task, and it hurt. I can remember the burning in the throat, right down to my heart, where it hurt.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I didn't want to say those words.
That humble pie really takes a hell of a lot to swallow.
And failure and disappointment, and like, oh my God, it was a simple task. And I'll never forget the way this woman greeted me. She just went, oh, Bronwyn, I'm so sorry. She said, I should never have put you in that position. She said, that was my mistake. She picked up the phone, she made the call, she got the task completed, and she looked at me and she said, what I need you to know is you just earned yourself a whole big bucket of respect. And I went, but I stuffed up. And she said, no, you didn't. You came to me and said, I've tried my best and it didn't work. I now need to hand it over. She said, that's what I admire. And I was like, holy shit, eh?
Yeah.
So, Cara, has any of that been helpful?
I love what you said, in the chat, that mistakes are lessons, because there are no mistakes. There are opportunities. There are, for instance, the famous example of Thomas Edison when he was inventing the light bulb. Somebody asked him, how does it feel that you failed so many times? And his response was, I didn't fail, at least according to urban legend. His response was, I didn't fail. I just learned 1,000 ways not to do it.
Not to do it. That's why I hyphenate mistake, because I truly believe that's what a mistake is. It's simply a mistake. And if we learn from it, we don't have to keep repeating how we might feel when things aren't the way we want them to be.
Exactly.
And the learning how not to do things is also very valuable.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God, yeah. That was one of the lessons that I learned through my degree, was that there are no mistakes. There's no, you learn as much from a null hypothesis or a misproven hypothesis as you do from actually proving your hypothesis. So there is no mistakes. It's meant to be. So no. And
yeah.
This is just it. This is what I need, is that I get so caught up in forgetting or being in what I know and what comes naturally to me, that I just can't step out of that and go, oh, okay.
So can I make a suggestion?
Mm-hmm.
What would it be like if you were to actually write yourself for 30 days permission slips? So on day one, it might start with, I give myself full permission to listen to my intuitive intelligence.
Hard. Honestly, it'd be hard.
Are you prepared to do it?
Yeah, of course. Of course.
Because do you know what's likely to happen when you start doing that?
I'll come up with the answers myself.
Well, you've already got them. They're already sitting there.
Yeah.
You know that, and you've said that. This is all about, I honestly believe, Cara, every element of work we do, be it for fee for service, for the coaching work, consulting work, strategic leadership development, whatever it is, every aspect of our work when it comes to helping facilitate change, it's all informed by permission. And the notion of doing the 30 days, you're a psych, you get it, the 30 days of rewiring, recalibrating and reaffirming to yourself actually, I am allowed to do this. The sooner you can do that, the easier it's going to be for you to enter that workspace from a very different perspective, because what you'll take with you into that space will be a sense of confidence that you're trusting and backing yourself. And if other people aren't ready yet to meet you in that space, to negotiate around how to manage their fear so they can get better results, that's okay. Because it's, like if you give yourself permission to go, well, that's okay, because if they're not ready, they're not ready. You can lead a horse to water, you can't make it drink.
Right.
I had a classic example recently where I was asked to go in and assess, from a HR perspective, to go in and assess a situation. And one of the expectations was to take a staff member through a performance management process. I assessed the situation. I had a 2-hour meeting with the staff member. I went back to the executive and said, my recommendations are is that you go no further with this. And they went, what? I said, you have got one person who is not performing in a way that is aligned with your values, goals and missions. You have got 140 other staff who are doing the very best they can. Now you've got 10 on your senior management team who are having to backfill for someone who's not able to do their work. To put focused effort and energy into those 10 who are doing their best is a much better investment than putting focused effort and energy into one who's actually not aligned.
And it sends the wrong message to the rest of the other people.
Hello. So from one perspective, I guess I did go into that meeting making those recommendations thinking, I've prospectively just shot myself in the foot for further work. But you know what happened? They've given me a 12-month contract to now work with the other 10. Honestly, it was literally about me giving myself full permission to be present, to assess, to make the recommendations with integrity and say, this is my professional view and here are the recommendations.
Yeah, I'm listening.
You know what? 2 years ago, I don't think I could have done that because I still would have had a sense of fear around the obligation of doing what was asked of me in the first place, rather than going in, listening to my intelligence, my intuitive intelligence, and just going, look, I know you asked me for this, but actually what I'm sensing is that you need something else. And I didn't do what I'm sensing is that you need something else from the perspective of expecting work. It was not that at all. It was just, here are my recommendations.
And you brought up a very good point right there, Bronwyn, about about that permission and being able to let go of the fear. You went in there being determined to be you, authentic, and listening to your intuition and speaking out, let the chips fall where they may. And I know that for many of us who have spent time in the corporate world, we end up developing those layers of fear because we're fearful that, we're going to get walloped by a vindictive boss. We're fearful that we might lose our job. We're fearful that we might not get the contract. So many things just swirl around us and so forth. And especially for those of us who have spent time studying the sciences and psychology and things like that, oftentimes there's a huge fear, especially what I've noticed, and this is what I've observed, especially in the world of psychology and therapy and so forth, is that there's so much an emphasis on the evidence-based practice that we are fearful of allowing ourselves and giving us permission to listen to our intuition. We don't have to broadcast it. We don't have to go out there and say that, this is what I'm doing. But if we listen to our intuition, we can also find ways of phrasing it in a way that falls within the parameters in which we're working.
Agree, which speaks so beautifully to that problem that you raised, Cara.
Mm.
Yeah.
That to me is what I feel like we're being invited into this space to actually help take our organisations or our individual clients through this journey of a transactional economy into the transformational economy. I really sincerely believe that's what more and more of the corporates are looking for, because corporate cruelty is being called out. Workplace bullying and harassment's gone through the roof. We know it. And the fear that is informing a lot of people not being able to really step into their own, stand strength in their vulnerabilities, but to actually claim their intuitive intelligence of going, you know what, maybe I can't explain it clearly for why I'm saying no to this contract, but it's a big fat no.
Yep.
I've been very blessed to work in organisations where I've been able to do that, and it didn't, it didn't shoot me in the foot. But not a lot of places, individuals or organisations or businesses are yet ready for that in ways that the language, Appio, I think is going to be really important. I think what they are ready for is some of that really frank and fearless communication around, you know what, you've asked me to come in to have a look at this, to assist in this area. I can make these kind of recommendations and these are the tasks I could set for you. But until you've got your people ready to be able to hear that kind of language and go through that kind of process, maybe I'm not the best person for you.
Absolutely, because in many cases, you're also not just talking about, the top-down approach of many corporations. In some ways, you actually are going to be, you may be challenging the culture itself. And even though in your particular case, Cara, you specialize in working with social media managers, getting the word out and being able to broadcast represent the company is very much a representation of the corporate culture as well. And
gotcha.
Yeah. And so all of this does tie into being able to have those conversations. And the good thing about where businesses around the world are going is that they are starting to become much more conscious. They're starting to become much more aware of the language that's being used, the culture that's in there, and how they're able to just really foster that environment of communication. Even corporations that are very entrenched in old industrial age thinking are starting to move forward and really starting to embrace this idea that there is a more holistic approach to business.
Yes.
And I do believe, Appio and Cara, that more and more organisations, and I like to strip organisations down to, we need to remember people make up organisations, people make up government, people make up corporate. And this whole concept of corporate cultural bullying, what we're actually talking about, in my worldview, is we've got individuals who aren't feeling good about themselves and are therefore operating out of that.
Yeah. And
then infecting those around them. And I just want to come back to that point I was making before, Cara, about, I think if we can be more frank and fearless in our communications with our clients, what I've learned from not being frank and fearless enough, that I've had 3 clients in 6 years that I really didn't listen to my intuition, and that was primarily driven because I needed the money. I literally needed the piece of work. And those 3 times, by ignoring listening to my intuitive intelligence, they came back to bite me on the butt.
Yep.
One was really contracted and drawn out and painful. It was time consuming. It was just a freaking nightmare.
Yep. I'm looking at one of those at the moment.
And so again, I just...
friend of a friend, I'm looking at it going, this is going to be a pain to do. I really don't want to do it, but I'm doing it as a favor. I'm getting paid for it. And it's just like, man. Yeah, no, get it.
Yeah. Cool. And I think the more we can actually bring that kind of certainty, and dare I say it, a bit of audacity, into our negotiations, to be able to say, look, honestly, I live in a small country town, so I feel very privileged with the face-to-face work that I do, and I love my face-to-face work as well as the online work. But I have a reputation for being very different as a consultant. For organisations to get me to come in to do some work with them, it's generally because the world's blown up, the shit's about to hit the fan, and they're not quite sure what to do, and they're like, can you seriously, this is the kind of call I get. Bronwyn, you've been recommended to us around some of the work the work that you do. And
I can imagine it.
So was there something specific? Well, we've got a few people who kind of not quite doing the right thing at the moment. I go, okay. So did you have an idea about what you wanted? No, Marie said that we should just call you. Okay. Seriously? That's how some really big work comes to me. It's this referral on the grounds of, and what I find out afterwards is that the conversation went along the lines of, Vicky's rung Marie, or Susie's rung Marie, going, I've got all this stuff going on, not sure how to cope with it. Oh, you should get Bronwyn Clee. Why? Oh my God, she just knows how to do stuff. And you know what it is? Because I go in saying I'm different. I don't work by the book. If you can trust my intuitive intelligence and get out of the way so that I can do the work, you'll get the results. I won't own the results, but I know I can help get you there. If that fit doesn't work for you, it's not going to work.
And I've come up and I've worked at the offices in where you are. So I understand. I get it. I spent a week up there working up at the office up there, and I went, wow, this is so... Okay. I thought Adelaide was different enough. No. We are the last frontier. You are the last frontier, aren't you? That is seriously, you are... I thought Adelaide was, the gateway to the east. No. She's in pioneer land over there, Appio, or up there.
Definitely. And I love it because I'm a pioneer. I just want to pick up here on something Vincent said. In order to hear your intuition, it's important to first calm and quieten the logical brain. Yes and no. Like I understand what your intention is there, Vincent. But I've been in situations where I've not really had any reason to stop and listen to my intuition, but I have been just kind of pulled up quick smart and pulled out of a situation where I've known myself to walk away going, don't even know what just happened there. So I'm not quite, you know what I mean? Like I'm not convinced that we have to be calm and quiet enough to hear that intuitive voice. Sometimes it can literally be a push.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I would add to that. Yeah, I would definitely add to that by saying that if we are practiced enough in listening to our intuition, there's almost like a melding between the logical brain and the intuitive brain. And they can complement each other. They can work with each other. I've always been one who feels very passionately about the fact that if you pay attention to how you are feeling in any given moment, regardless of whether it's the intuitive brain or the logical brain, it's the feeling that's going to guide us, and it's the feeling that's going to tell us. So when in the example that you're just giving us, Bronwyn, you were paying attention to how you were feeling about it. It didn't make sense, but you were still paying attention.
Good point.
And very instinctively to how you were feeling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What I got out of what Vin said was overthinking. I am a chronic overthinker.
Paralysis by analysis?
No, I'm not analytical. I say I'm not analytical. My husband corrects me every single time. He says, no, you are analytical and you're actually really quite good at it. But no, I look at options and versions and, carry things through to the nth degree. I'm just one of those chronic overthinkers.
Well, can I suggest, again, back to the strategy of the permission notes, might that be something else you might give yourself permission to think a bit differently about?
I have had, thank you. I've had this book sitting here, and I went to a coaching session, a one-day intensive coaching session earlier this year, and I've had this book, and I used like 6 pages in it. I went, I've been wondering what to use the rest of it for. Guess what it's going to be? There's going to be another 30 pages used in this book on my permission, and it's going to be one a day. It's going to be a day to a page.
Beautiful. I love it. Well, might I suggest to really help to support you around that, might we check in 14 to 15 days time and just check in with you and see how you're going with my permission slips? Because I would sincerely love to know what your observations will be around the different experiences, because I know they will be. I just know it.
Yep. And I will be going with my intuition, Appio, and my feelings for that one, because that is, I know that's where my permission problems lie. And it's, I get it. I get this knot in my gut going, no, you
Don't do it. Don't do it.
no, can't admit to that one.
Exactly.
So guess what? When I feel that knot, that one's gone on the page.
Yeah. And because again, look, what a beautiful opportunity to give yourself permission to not have the knot.
Yeah.
You know, because those,
Yes.
oh man,
Yes.
they can be nasty.
Oh yeah, especially if you don't pay attention to it, you go through and it gets worse.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they certainly build those knots. So
mm-hmm.
Wow. Well,
thank you.
And it ain't fun.
How you feeling, Cara?
I'm not saying relieved, but it's lighter. I'm feeling lighter from it. So, you know, I was coming in, it's like, okay, I need that list of things that I can check off. You know, well, Carrie, you should really discuss this and this and this and this and this. Thank you for not giving that to me. Thank you for not giving that to me, because I think what you've given to me is actually more important in the bigger picture and in the long term. So I think that's great. So
fantastic. I'm so glad. To you too. So honestly, I really want to keep these conversations happening around this, you know, the opportunity. I know for me already, having been on Blab, I think it's 86 days. I think I saw that on my profile somewhere, something like that. The amount of gold I have received in this space, it's just been phenomenal. So the last Blab for Good that I did, Cara, I invited Kate and Rod Powers. They're the authors of a book called My Underpants Rule, and it's a book about keeping kids safe. So part of my background has been advocating for keeping kids safe, really. I was a child protective behaviours trainer, practitioner, sat on the national board for 3 years, blah, blah. And I don't mean that to downgrade the work, but it was a very big part of my life. So my 31-year-old daughter rings me about a month ago and says, Mum, I've just seen this thing on Facebook. It's a book called My Underpants Rule. Australian ex-police officer and her husband wrote the book. They need your help. Can you do something? And I'm like, of course. I don't know what the something is, my love, but Mama will try. So not having really a clue what the trying was going to look like, I put up a tweet. Actually, I introduced myself to Kate and Rod Powers and had to, you know, do the disclaimer. I'm not a weirdo. I'm into doing social good. I think I can help. Put a tweet up to Robert Stern and a few others and just said, you know what, I know that you all care about keeping kids safe, and what I'd like to do is facilitate an opportunity on Blab where we could put this topic up and just see what can come, see what kind of support we might be able to collaboratively achieve. So the beautiful Robert Stern, God, that man's just, I'm just really in awe of his generous heart.
Yeah.
He helped facilitate a conversation where he brought in, he opened up his network. He brought in mummy bloggers from around the world. He brought in a LinkedIn expert. He brought in an angel investor, a philanthropist. These people just swarmed because they all know of his generous heart and because of the topic.
Yep.
So the topic touches everyone's heart, right? So within 2 hours, the conversation went from Kate reciting the rhyme in the book, and it's a very powerful rhyme. I'd love to get it, actually, though. She sent me a box of books last week. So she's recited the rhyme. People have heard about the book, and then a program, that like a game she's developed to match it, but wanting to develop teacher resources. Someone suggested that a letter be written to Michelle Obama, Lucy Turnbull, the 50 congressmen and women of the US. Like this thing that went from, it was amazing. And to be in that seat of facilitating it was such an honor, because of this the generosity that just poured in. So, the therapist in me, the coach counselor, was like halfway, okay, so just want to check in with you, Kate. How you doing? She's like, wow, overwhelmed.
Yeah. I'm kind of a bit emotionally numb here.
She's just like, I don't know what just happened. Like, I'm just sitting here in little old Sydney, Australia, and we've got someone from Geneva who's come in to help support this. So that for me was just the most beautiful validation of, you know what, I can do this. I love connecting people. So to put up a blab for good.
And you're so good at it too.
Oh,
you really are amazing.
She is.
I just love it. Well,
Oh yeah.
I've been taught by this amazing woman. My mother has, she's got 8 children, 18 grandchildren, and 14 great-grandchildren. So she had her first baby at 17. She was a grandmother at 35. It's a hard life, but my God, that woman has got a heart as big as this planet. And she embedded in me that you do good wherever you possibly can. You give back to your community. And I just had 12 days with her. Flew home on Sunday, and I sat with her having a cup of tea one day, and I said to her, you know what, I can remember as a 12-year-old having to walk 2 miles to get to a bush children's home, so like a space for kids to come from out bush to the coast to get medical help, Appio. I had to walk there to do a Girl Guide badge. Not because I wanted to, but because my mother said, you will do your civic duty badge. I'm like, so we're having this cup of tea, like 50 years or 40 years later, I'm saying to her, I hated your guts, Mama. Like, seriously, the 2 miles that I'd walk there, I'd be thinking, I hate you, Mum. You're such a bitch. I would get there, I would get to the children's home, I would do my civic duty, and I would love it so much I'd forget about having to walk the 2 miles home. And then the 2 miles home, I'd be back on I hate your guts, Mum. I hate your guts. Because it was such a long walk. But that
I totally get that. There was a lot of things that I felt like I was forced to do as a child that now I look back and I'm like, you know what, that did a lot of good for me. I remember one time when some neighbors, they had just moved in, they were actually landscaping their yard, and my mom showed up and she said, by the way, they need help with putting their sod in, the grass in, so go do it. I'm like, but no. She said, no, go. And you know what? It's funny because that experience, I mean, to this day, when I see them, they say, I cannot forget that time when you just showed up and you helped us with wow. And they've been incredible friends with the family, and just, I have very fond memories of that now. But boy, at the time, I was complaining the whole way through.
Thank you for telling me that, because I've got 2, Appio, you don't know, I've got 2 children. I've got a girl who's 10 and a boy who's 8. And I know it's, through what I do and what I reinforce to the kids, like my daughter is like, you can see it on her face. She is dark with me about whatever I've told her she has to do at that time. She's like, Mum, I hate you guys. I seriously, you know what? Rot in hell at this point in time for all I care. Yep. I will go up to her, and generally it's about her being a mother to her younger brother, and that is generally the thing that really gets on her goat. I will go and I will kiss her goodnight, and she'll say to me, Mum, I'm sorry, but you were really right. And it's good to know that those lessons will stay with her for life.
They do.
Because at this point in time, believe me, when I say the same freaking thing every single day, and I feel like I'm not getting through to her, eventually it will click.
Absolutely.
And it will stick with her for life.
It really, really does. I mean, at the time, you get all kinds of nasty looks and, rolling of the eyes and everything else, and, attitude. And But it
But
does.
it's teaching.
It really does.
Absolutely.
It is
And
teaching.
we know that those values that are instilled in those formative years, they become the essence of our foundation.
Mm.
So it's, you know, like
Yes.
it's lovely to have people acknowledge how much I love connecting and how good I am at it. I don't do it with an agenda to achieve anything other than being a part of the social glue of contributing to creating a better world for the greater good of all. Because I want to be a part of that world, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And, you know, that's why I've dedicated myself to doing the work that I'm doing now, you know, is because I mean, I see so much pain. I feel so much pain, emotional pain that around me from many of the traumatic experiences that people have experienced as a result of expectations that have been placed on them. We're kind of taking a quick, veer off into the bushes, if you will. But it ties very much into what we're talking about as far as our experiences as children. Yes, there are many good experiences, and some of them, we may not like them while we're doing them. We may not like them as we're being told you must, but ultimately they end up being good. But on the flip side of that, there's also the experiences that traumatize us, that leave us feeling very, very scarred, and leave us with a lot of the the guilt and shame and fear. Fear is the big one. I think that so many of the issues that we face in the corporate world, as well as in our personal lives and in society and so forth, so much of it is fear-based.
Absolutely. I really believe that's what drives corporate cruelty.
Yeah.
Because corporate cruelty is, when you look at fear for what it is, it's false evidence appearing real. The tragedy that I see in corporate is when the pack mentality feeds into it. So, we look at all of the individuals make up corporates, and when we look at individuals operating out of their own fear base as an individual, it's a very different entity to when there's then that pack mentality that comes in to say, actually, we hold the balance of power here from a negative perspective. That's what I find really challenging. However, I do believe that we're starting to see a greater shift away from that now as more and more people, particularly those of us that have got a few life experiences under our belt, and we're going, you know what, that world's not working for me anymore. And as we make our way out and start to see the world from a transformational economy rather than the transactional, I believe that's why we're being called back into those spaces, because we can go back in with the experience that we've got and be able to then talk about with authority what it was like for us in that role, so that people then go, oh, you're one of us.
Yeah. And here's the fun part, and now we'll go back into the bushes again. Well, can you hear me okay?
Just got a delay.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So back into the bushes again, but again, tying into the whole conversation from, as an energy worker, as somebody who is very conscious and tapped into, the flow and current of emotion that's going on around me and so forth. One of the things I can say is that when, back in 2012, when everybody was going crazy about, the Mayan calendar and the end of this, the end of the world, et cetera, and, all the sensationalism going on and so forth. Obviously, the Maya never looked at it that way. They looked at it as the end of an era. It was the end of their calendar, but it was the end of an era. And if you would have asked anybody, of the Maya who lived there in Central America, they would have said the same thing. I really, 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 at least for me anyway, what I have been picking up on, what I have been sensing is the fact that shift that took place back in December 2012 was in fact an awakening. It was a transition so that now even the most hardened people in the corporate world, the people who live in so much fear and so forth, are starting to wake up to greater consciousness.
I agree.
They're starting to actually listen to their intuition a bit more. They're starting to listen to their feelings more.
Yeah.
And they're really starting to get, be guided by that. That was the major shift that took place then, and it is accelerating. It's getting stronger, and there's just so much that I get excited just thinking about it, just tapping into it, just letting myself feel it, how it feels and so forth. There's this incredible undercurrent of people like starting to question the status quo, starting to question the old ways.
Yep.
And it's exhilarating. And so the new economy, instead of the transactional economy, the transformative economy and economy instead is very much a representation, a symptom, if you will, of that awakening that's taken place.
Absolutely, because the world is now, in my experience. Oh, hello, Ashley. And I think Marg Lambert's in the room.
Hey, Ashley.
In my experience, what it feels like, and Cara, I'd love to know your opinion on this as a fellow Australian. I feel like we're finally able to use some language in workplaces that around emotional wellness, around emotional fitness, around emotional health, that even 5 years ago we couldn't. It just would not have been accepted.
Yeah. Yes, we can. Absolutely, we can. And there is less stigma, and it is more acceptable to talk about those kinds of things in the workplace, and it's good, and it's past due that we can actually discuss those things in the workplace. We've still got a long way to go.
Yeah, we have.
There is a lot.
You know, in fact, Vin mentioned mindfulness earlier, and I get really excited when I see many companies. Of course, you know, the newer, more forward-thinking ones are very much tapped into mindfulness, and there's a lot of mindfulness experts out there and so forth. And I get really excited because it does tie into this higher level of consciousness that's taking place. The conversations that couldn't take place 5 years ago. You know, or even sometimes as recently as 3 years ago.
Yeah,
now those conversations are, in fact, starting to take place.
Hey, Joe Show. Oh, aren't you thoughtful to pop in here? Thank you. Oh, look at that. Look at that.
Squirrel.
Oh. Fantastic.
Shut.
We all need a lift every once in a while.
Oh,
don't we though?
Look at that. Oh, how fascinating. I've just got to try and delete them all.
Oh, gee.
There we go.
Yeah, well, hey, you know, that talking about being mindful.
Yes.
And being conscious,
yeah,
right?
Exactly. And Joe Show, Titty Boom. Titty. Sorry, Linda, we just got bombed.
Hi, Linda.
Okay.
You can,
how you going?
I popped in just to say that you can ban that account. Are you able to see how to do that?
I have. I've done that. I'm just trying to delete all of the
the messages now, the residual stuff.
Also, Joe Simon, I don't know if he knows that somebody's trying to impersonate him, because the name of it was Hey Joe Show. And, you know, Joe Simon, his Joe Show may be going on right this minute.
Oh.
So, anyway.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I may pop over there and let him know.
That.
But anyway, I didn't want to interrupt your blood. I just saw that happening. I was typing something in the chat, and I saw that happening, and I thought I would just pop in. But what I was typing is I still want to interview you and your friend, Bronwyn. So,
love to.
Yeah, about that special rule.
Yeah, please do. Well, will you send me a direct message on Twitter?
Yes.
Please, Linda. That'd be fantastic. Yeah,
okay.
Beautiful. Look forward to that. Lovely. Thank you. Appreciate that. Cara, just on that topic of the, we've still got a long way to go around helping shape and change the workplaces. I sincerely believe that it's up to us. As we've all being invited back into that corporate world, I do think we've got an ideal opportunity to help influence the change from that position of sharing that, you know what, we've been where you are. Mm. We know what it's like, and I can remember feeling very confronted by others that probably knew more than me, and my fear of being exposed to not know enough It was horrible. I can almost still taste what that felt like as an experience. And if someone had have been able to have come alongside of me, which I was blessed to have a couple of people made it, but for people to have, I want to say experts in a positive way, for knowledge keepers to have come alongside and worked with me from that angle of, tell us what you have been doing that's worked really well. What's that felt like? What would it take for you to be able to do more of that? Now let's look at where the challenges are. What would it feel like for that to be different? What are some of the things that you might want to do differently? I just feel like that kind of approach, those strategies would have just worked a treat.
Yeah,
I'm just thinking back to that original challenge that you presented to us, and man, imagine if we could influence other decision makers to be able to start working with their teams from that kind of perspective.
Yeah, and even open up that by opening up that space of that permission to not know it all. By giving them permission and then saying it's and not only that, but so that they can learn that they can also give permission to their direct reports, to the people within their culture. As long as you are doing the best that you possibly can, and as long as you find the resources, as long as you're constantly challenging yourself to grow and to learn and to expand, and as long as all of us are coming together within the company for the greater good, so we can do good, not just as a company, not just for the shareholders, but as our mission. Because the truth is that every single company that's out there exists not to make money, but to provide a service, to do something good, to solve a problem. And if we can look at it from that perspective, and if we can help these leaders understand that they are indeed problem solvers, and that every single person that's in that system, not individuals, but the system as a whole, are there as contributing to the resolution of that problem. And yes, you have permission to not know it all. Imagine the incredible things that can take place. I get chills of thinking about that one.
Hey folks, I'm going to wrap this up because we are almost at time, and I've got clients on their way. So I want to say thank you very much, Cara. I really appreciate you coming in and putting up those challenges to us. And
thank you.
I'm glad that you've got some strategies there. You're going to work on that permission commitment for 30 days and recalibrate your new beliefs that you can you can give yourself permission to do it differently. And we'll check back in a couple of weeks' time. That'll be really, I'd love that. That'll be fun to just get a sense on where you're up to. Do feel free, won't you, to tweet at Appio and I with how you're tracking on that. That'll be another kind of fun bit of public accountability for you too, if you're up for it.
If I find a great big knot that I come across, I'll let you both know.
Please do.
We might be the knot busters, brother.
You can be my knot busters.
That's right. We can totally do that.
Brother, I'm not those knots. Okay, so thank you very much, and for all of the chat community, and Cara and Appio, thanks for just adjudicating and facilitating that chat. I find it really difficult to do as the facilitator of the Blab to try and stay on top of that, and I just love how intuitively there seems to be this beautiful flow on Blab, doesn't there, where someone will come in and just help make that happen. Awesome. I love it. So thank you. I just want to throw out there too, Tim, Rocker Life Coach. Tim, I don't know if you're following Tim.
Yes.
Tim has created this beautiful tag. I'm just going to put it in here, and it's called "Thank you for being in my life today." They're the letters.
Oh, interesting.
So please share the love. I've got to take that call. I've got to go really quickly.
All right.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks.
All right.
Appreciate it.
We'll see you guys later.
Bye.
All righty.